Crossing the Renminbi Toll Bridge. Why history doesn't repeat, it rhymes. Summary statement. History shows that monetary systems fail not when assets lose value, but when control over those assets is lost. China has internalized this lesson and is rebuilding monetary relevance not through trust-based reserve status, but through enforced access to strategic assets and infrastructure, turning the renminbi into a functional toll bridge the world must cross to secure future purchasing power. Section 1, Framing the Thesis. The future is not measured in nominal returns, yield curves, or gross domestic product growth. It is measured in purchasing power, meaning what a unit of account can reliably command in the real world, across borders, regimes, and supply constraints. For decades, global finance treated reserve currency status as a function of trust in institutions, trust in law, trust in markets. But in a world fragmenting along geopolitical, technological, and resource lines, trust is no longer the binding constraint. Access is. This marks a shift from reserve currency to access currency. An access currency does not need to be loved, held, or believed in. It only needs to sit between the buyer and what the buyer needs. That intermediary position, which can be described as a toll bridge, creates recurring, unavoidable demand. China's strategy with the renminbi is not to replace the dollar ideologically. It is to make the renminbi functionally unavoidable. Section 2, Historical Rhyme, China's Silver Standard. For much of its modern history, China operated on a silver-based monetary system. Taxes were paid in silver. Large transactions were settled in silver. Trade balances were denominated by silver weight, not face value. Silver was not merely money, it was the stabilizing backbone of the economy. Prices, wages, and fiscal flows were anchored to a neutral, bearer asset. And because China was already the manufacturing center of the world, silver became the toll currency required to access Chinese production. If you wanted what China made, you paid in silver. The system worked until control was lost. In 1934, the United States passed the Silver Purchase Act, forcing the United States government to buy large quantities of silver and sharply driving up its price. For a silver-based economy, this was catastrophic. As silver prices rose, silver was pulled out of China, capital drained, deflation set in, spending collapsed, investment froze, the economy began to contract inward. By 1935, China abandoned the silver standard, not because silver failed as money, but because China learned a decisive lesson. If your economy depends on a material you do not control, another nation can weaponize it against you. This lesson is the historical rhyme now resurfacing. Section 3, The Modern Reversal, Control first, currency second. China's present strategy is the inverse of its past vulnerability. Rather than anchoring its system to assets it does not control, China is ensuring control precedes dependence. Monetary relevance is no longer built by convincing others to hold your currency. It is built by forcing others to use it. This is a structural pivot, from belief to necessity, from trust to enforcement, from reserves to routes. The renminbi does not need to be a global store of value. It only needs to be the currency you must cross to obtain what matters. This content is brought to you by Bobby Giggs. Promote your brand here and reach a wide audience across platforms like YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook. Follow the links in the description to get started. Section 4, Precious Metals as Strategic Infrastructure. Gold, trust without permission. China's accumulation of gold and the construction of infrastructure like the Shanghai Gold Exchange signal a desire to anchor credibility outside the dollar system. Gold serves as neutral collateral outside political confiscation, debasement, and sanction regimes. Gold rebuilds trust. Silver, control without substitution. Silver plays a different role. It is not primarily monetary. It is industrial. Silver is essential to solar panels, electric vehicles, data centers, military electronics, satellites, and advanced manufacturing. Crucially, silver demand is inelastic. Industries cannot simply stop using it when prices rise. By controlling silver refining, processing, and now exports, China has transformed silver into a strategic choke point. Reclassification under dual-use export controls and licensing regimes effectively closes the exits. Starting January 1st, 2026, China decides who gets access. This time, silver cannot be drained out of China. It can only be accessed through China. Section 5, The Renminbi as a bridge, not a store of value. This is the critical distinction. China is not asking the world to save in renminbi. It is asking the world to settle, transact, and pass through it. The renminbi functions as a settlement layer, a transactional intermediary, and a bridge currency. You may convert into it briefly. You may exit it quickly. But repeated crossing creates structural demand. Over time, this demand becomes indistinguishable from reserve relevance without ever requiring ideological buy-in. Section 6. Parallel toll booths. China is building. Precious metals are only one toll booth. China is stacking others. Manufacturing, meaning the cheapest, fastest, most automated industrial base. Energy transition inputs such as batteries, electric vehicles, solar panels, and wind turbines. Rare earths, with 80 to 90% control of global refining. Artificial intelligence and compute, including domestic chips, open source models, and industrial AI. Debt markets, where cheaper renminbi-denominated borrowing is attracting sovereign refinancing. Each domain reinforces the same pattern. Access requires crossing Chinese infrastructure and often Chinese currency rails. Section 7. The decline of the dollar's three-legged stool. The United States dollar's dominance rested on three pillars. First, the petrodollar. Second, United States treasuries as reserve storage. Third, United States equities as the global growth engine. All three are weakening. Oil is increasingly settled outside dollars. Treasuries are being replaced by gold. Equity dominance is concentrated, fragile, and increasingly contestable, particularly if alternative artificial intelligence and industrial stacks undercut United States tech primacy. As each leg weakens, the dollar's monetary premium erodes. Not suddenly, but mechanically. Section 8. Multipolar money and enforced access. In a multipolar world, cooperation gives way to leverage. Neutral assets regain importance. Supply chains become strategic. Processing matters more than extraction. Control of exits matters more than ownership of narratives. Money becomes infrastructure. Those who control the bridges decide who builds, who waits, and who pays the toll. Section 9. Implications going forward. Reserve status will no longer be declared. It will emerge from repeated necessity. Currencies that intermediate access to energy, materials, compute, and production will matter more than currencies backed by promises alone. Purchasing power will trump yield. Control will trump trust. Section 10. Closing synthesis. History did not repeat China's silver collapse. It rhymed. This time, China controls the metals, the processing, the exits, and the bridges. The renminbi does not ask to be believed in. It asks to be crossed. And in a world where the future is measured in purchasing power, the currency that sits between nations and what they need will matter, whether anyone likes it or not.